Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Smash the like, hit subscribe. You're going to get your fill of Canadian federal politics here today. We're going to jump right over to question period. We've got it ready to go. That's it, Aaron, Canadian Looney. Let's see how many people we can get in the chat room and watching our video today. Anyhow, we're going to cross right over to question period. Let's kick this off.
Oral questions, the Honourable Member for Sherbrooke Park for Saskatchewan.
Yeah, let's go.
This Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. He promised to build this country. But today we're seeing that those policies are just not working. January saw a major drop in private sector employment of over 50,000 workers, a drop of 28,000 in the manufacturing sector alone. This government is presiding over a deepening employment crisis as more people are dropping out of the workforce. When will Liberals listen to the constructive solutions we have put forward and recognize that what they're doing isn't working?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Minister of Immigration.
Total employment, Madam Speaker, is up, in fact, by 134,000 jobs over the past year. Most of those jobs are in the private sector. We see a rate of inflation at 2.4%. That is well within the Bank of Canada's guideline, and also an unemployment rate that is now down to 6.5%. But we do not rest on that, Madam Speaker. There is anxiety in Canada. There is anxiety, but there is also resilience. Resilience that defines this country, that defines its people. What that resilience means is that there's an expectation that we work together. Will the Conservatives work with us to pass Budget 2025, measures that include benefits for his community and mine?
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke Park for Saskatchewan.
Madam Speaker, we will work to advance solutions that work, and we will oppose what is not working. I'm looking again, just clearly at the employment numbers. Private sector employment fell by over 50,000 in the last month. Young people overwhelmingly report that they are worse off than their parents' generation because they can't find jobs and they can't afford homes. Canadians are looking for hope. They're looking for real solutions, and that starts with the government recognizing that what they're doing is not working. When will they come to that recognition?
The Parliamentary Secretary.
Canadians are, in fact, looking for hope, Madam Speaker. They're looking for hope, but they're also looking for people to work together in this House of Commons, to support them at this time, in the short term and in the long term. In the short term, what this means is, and we saw it, in fact, a spirit of collaboration helped to bring about C-19. C-19, of course, is the Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit that will provide up to $1,900 for a family of four. But for the long term, we can work together to ensure the budget passes. Spending is there for defence that will create tens of thousands of jobs, for infrastructure to build this country up, among other things. Will they help us?
The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Right now, young people in Quebec and across Canada aren't asking for the moon. They just want a job, a real job to start their lives. But what are they seeing? In January, Canada lost 25,000 jobs in the manufacturing sector, and investment is fleeing the country. Meanwhile, the only job growth is coming from more bureaucracy, not real jobs in the real economy. Young people are stuck with precarious employment or no jobs at all, while factories are closing in Baie-Comeau and elsewhere across Canada. Does this PM recognize that the economy is not creating the jobs our young people need to get started in life? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Since my colleague from Quebec is talking about employment figures, and he certainly noted in Quebec we created jobs, many of them, and where we've had the lowest unemployment rate in the country. But let's also recognize that the industrial sectors directly threatened by U.S. tariffs are the ones that are suffering the greatest, and that is why yesterday we announced a new strategy for the automotive sector so we can grow automotive production capacity in Canada. The Honourable Member. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Liberals are patting themselves on the back for their work, but we're talking about 52,000 jobs from the private sector that have been lost after years of anti-development laws, closed markets, and the flight of capital to the U.S. The results aren't there. Every week, real workers are paying the price, and it's our young people that are being told to wait, to make sacrifices. Again, the Conservatives have proposed a clear path forward. Build here, protect our jobs, unlock our resources. Will the PM work with the Conservatives to create real jobs here for our youth and defend Canada's economic sovereignty? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, our strategy to address these issues is in C15 and in our budget. That's our plan. It is very broad and comprehensive, and there are many measures. Will our Conservative colleagues do what they must, support us, so we can pass the budget as quickly as possible?
The member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Last night, the industry minister said the quiet thing out loud. When pressed on how many vehicles their EV rebate, Canadian vehicles their EV rebate will apply to, she admitted it's only one. So the vast majority of these EV rebates will go to foreign car manufacturers, including Donald Trump's America. You know, the guy who's tariffing our autos and put 5,000 auto workers out of work and closed 2 plants. Rather than rewarding Donald Trump's America, why don't they take the tax off all Canadian manufactured vehicles to preserve Canadian jobs and benefit all Canadian auto workers?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Speaker, yesterday was a great day as we stood on the shop floor of an auto manufacturer and talked about how we're not only going to keep working to support building vehicles here in Canada, but we're going to make EVs more affordable and more available for Canadians. We are doing the hard work. We are standing to support auto workers in our country because we know that we have the best industry in the world. Why won't he stand and cheer along with them?
Honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
The last time they ran EV rebates, between 2019 and 2025, 99% of the rebates went to foreign-made vehicles, including Donald Trump's United States. So while we're in the middle of a trade war and Donald Trump is tariffing our vehicles at 10%, leading to the closure of 2 manufacturing plants and the layoff of thousands of workers, Donald Trump's Buy America program is going to be benefited by Canadians buying American EVs, subsidized by Canadian taxpayers. This is outrageous. It's not a good day for Canadian auto workers. A good day would be if they adopted our plan to take the taxes off autos.
That's right. Minister.
Once again, it's another example of how Conservatives stand in the land of no and holding us back for the economy of the future. When we're talking about the rebates, let's be clear. The rebates actually are designed in a way to favour made in Canada. We are going to invest in the companies that invest in us. There is a specific part of this policy that not only, like I said, the rebates support made in Canada, but beyond that, we are incentivizing investments in building more of those vehicles right here at home because that is the future of the auto industry and we have the best auto workers.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Madam Speaker, some retirees have not received their old age pensions for 9 months, or they're receiving the wrong amounts because of the Procurement software in Ottawa. 10 days ago, when we questioned the government, it responded that it was a scare campaign. Then the next day, it finally admitted that the problem existed, but it was only a few cases, some 30 cases. Well, yesterday, in a dramatic turn of events at committee, the minister recognized that 85,000 people are affected. 85,000. How many more people will it take before the Liberals stop sweeping this problem under the rug?
The Minister of Labour.
Madam Speaker, like the minister has said, the department is working as quickly as possible to resolve these issues and to ensure that the personnel has the necessary tools to pay these benefits effectively. More than 7,000 seniors are now receiving their payments on time. We are currently modernizing this decades-old system so we can improve the payment of benefits for all seniors in the future. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Madam Speaker, imagine there are retirees who are listening to these answers and who are having problems with their old age pensions, and the Liberals went from 30 days, 10 days ago, to 85,000 yesterday. And that's the worst cost overrun with the Procurement software. It's the human cost, actually. And the worst is that even yesterday, with 85,000 victims of this software, the Liberals were still treating this issue as if it was just a series of isolated incidents. When 85,000 people fall through the cracks of this system, there is a major problem, Madam Speaker. When will the Liberals fix this?
Secretary.
Madam Speaker, this is a major update of a decades-old system. the Minister's Cabinet contacted Bloc's members to obtain the names of seniors who were in urgent need of assistance in solving this problem, and we still haven't received a reply from the member with respect to the names of these constituents. And the department will continue to work to deal with these cases while pursuing the modernization of the system to guarantee that seniors do receive the benefits they need. The Honourable Member for Beauharnois-Salaberry. Madam Speaker, since June, civil servants have been warning the government that there are problems with old age pensions because of the Procurement software. And clearly, no one in the Liberal Party has addressed this issue, because 10 days ago they said the problem didn't exist and it was just a scare campaign. And then suddenly yesterday they found 85,000 retirees who are victims of this system. They just woke up 8 months after being informed of this. Why is this government never able to take its responsibility before it's too late? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, it's not true. The implementation of this new payment platform requires an adaptation process, and the department is working tirelessly to ensure that the personnel has the necessary tools to familiarize themselves with the new system and to effectively pay these pensions. The service is already improving as employees are adapting. If they are experiencing issues, please contact Service Canada.
The Honourable Member for Middlesex, London.
Speaker, auto workers in Ontario are getting pink slips. Thousands of jobs are gone at Cami, Stellantis, GM Oshawa, and others. And now this Prime Minister is forcing taxpayers to subsidize over $2 billion worth of foreign EVs. Canadians deserve better than to be sold out to the Americans. So instead of handing billions of subsidies to American-made EVs and killing Canadian jobs, will the Liberals cooperate with Conservatives and adopt our plan to remove the tax off Canadian-made cars?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Today, the government announced this new auto industry strategy. It is a comprehensive strategy that will invest in those that invest in Canada. We will continue to protect Canadian production of automobiles, and we firmly believe that the future of the industry is in electrical vehicles, and there will be assembly of electrical vehicles in Canada, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Middlesex, London.
Speaker, let me clarify this and put this clearly for Canadians. Canadian auto workers lose thousands of jobs, and our domestic production is collapsing while these Liberals are forcing Canadian taxpayers to subsidize foreign-made electric vehicles. That includes the Jeep Compass EV, which should have brought jobs right here to Ontario. So when will the Liberals stop their betrayal and adopt our plan to remove the tax on Canadian-made cars to save jobs here at home?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, once again, we have the best auto workers in the world right here in Canada. We are there to support them, and we are facing unjustified tariffs from the United States. The Conservatives don't seem to ever like to talk about that, but that is actually what our auto industry is facing into us, and that is why we have specific programs we're putting in place to support our workers in difficult times. But beyond that, we're building for the future, and that is what they never do. We are building for the future. We're supporting our auto workers. We were there side by side with auto workers, and we made this announcement. We're going to be with them.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
President Trump slapped unjustified tariffs on Canadian autos, and thousands of Ontarians were put out of work as a result. Canadians need a plan that supports Canadian manufacturing and Canadian jobs. Only one Canadian vehicle qualifies for the Liberal EV subsidy, and that doesn't meet the moment. Will the government work with Conservatives, adopt our plan, and take the tax off Canadian-made autos to support Canadian auto manufacturing?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, Canadians understand that we're facing an unprecedented time. It's a rupture when we're facing unjustified tariffs from the United States, which the Conservatives never talk about. But we understand the impact on our workers. And in fact, the auto strategy announced yesterday included supports for our auto workers, including things like work sharing, because we understand their needs and we are there by their side. But we are not only there for this tough time, we are there to build for the future, to make sure they have the jobs of the future. We are going to keep working for a strong auto industry. Why won't they?
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, let me say it a little louder for the minister. We're talking about unjustified tariffs coming from the Trump administration. So we're talking about it. What we want from the minister and from this government is a plan that actually supports Canadian auto manufacturing. Look, your plan is their plan, Madam Speaker, is only going to help with one Canadian production line. We want to take the tax off all Canadian-made autos. Why do they want to subsidize President Trump's manufacturing strategy instead of supporting the hard-working men and women in Ontario's manufacturing?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, finally, our friends from the other side recognize that the issues with the auto industry come from the U.S. tariffs. It's the first time I hear this from their side. Bravo, bravo. It's about time. It's about time. Besides that, Madam Speaker, as I said, we are going to invest in those that invest in Canada, in those that commit to Canada. And by the way, currently, the two largest auto manufacturers in Canada are Toyota and Honda, and they remain fully committed to operating here, Madam Speaker.
Member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Madam Speaker, yesterday's announcement of a new national automotive strategy was nothing more than a slap in the face to Windsor's auto workers. The Prime Minister proudly announced that Canadians will now be subsidizing American-made vehicles. Why do the Liberals think that it's better to subsidize foreign-made vehicles rather than adopt the Conservative plan to cut the tax on cars made in Windsor and Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I don't know how to say this in parliamentary decorum, but that's just not true. That is just not true, Madam Speaker. The announcement of yesterday confirms our commitment to our industry and confirms our assistance to those that invest in Canada, Madam Speaker. And there are very large companies that are currently committed to investing in Canada, and that they will continue to do so. In order to promote that investment, that's what we announced yesterday, and it will work very well.
The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if the member across the aisle understands my question. 5,000 Canadian auto workers lost their jobs. This government's response is to hand out subsidies for American-built electric vehicles. I'm imploring the member across the aisle to answer the question. Instead of subsidizing foreign-made cars and killing Canadian auto jobs, will the Liberals adopt our Conservative plan to take the tax off of cars made in Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, time and time again, what we hear from the other side is that they actually have no plan. Yesterday, we presented a comprehensive auto strategy. It will help to reduce our emissions. It will help to support Canadians who want to buy EVs. The rebates specifically take into account a made-in-Canada component. It also has a component to support our auto workers in this time when they're facing the brunt of the unjustified tariffs from the United States. But more than that, we are standing side by side with our workers in our auto industry to build the industry for the future. Why won't they?
Yeah, great question. The member for Haliburton-Quarter Lakes.
Speaker, since 2016, auto production in Canada has collapsed from 2.3 million vehicles to just 1.2 million. We have lost over 5,000 auto jobs, including thousands in Oshawa and Brampton. Now the Liberals want to spend up to $2.3 billion in taxpayer money subsidizing foreign-made electric vehicles, many built in the United States, while Canadian plants sit idle. Instead of supporting manufacturing elsewhere, will the Liberals adopt our Conservative plan to take the tax off Canadian-made vehicles?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, the Conservatives just don't get it. We are positioning Canada to be a global leader. It's important that the Conservative Party recognize the need for Canada to act. One of the ways in which they can do that, Madam Speaker, is stop the filibustering on our budget implementation bill. If they want to deliver something for Canadians today, the best thing that they can do is they can stand in their place.
The Honourable Member, can we have order so the Honourable Member can answer and we can go through question period? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, 5 seconds.
Stop, Madam Speaker. 5 seconds. Well, let me give a clear message. You want to help Canadians? Time to stop filibustering and allow budget implementation.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-La Matapédia. Madam Speaker, the scientific community is concerned. The Liberals are cutting 20 jobs at the Maurice Lamontagne Institute in Mount Joly, a major regional scientific hub and a gem of research. And this is a worrying loss of expertise that jeopardizes both regional and economic development in our regions. And this also reduces the ability of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to act on evidence, which is already a serious problem there. Can we really afford to weaken science just to save a few pennies?
Thank you for the question. And it is an important issue, Madam Speaker. I think science played an integral role in the building up of agriculture and agri-food in this country, and it's going to continue. I had the opportunity to meet with the president of the University of Saskatchewan just this week. I was in Laval at their university as well. We had good discussions. It's important that we move forward with a revised science program, Mr. Speaker, and we'll continue to do that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member Rimouski. Madam Speaker, Liberal cuts in science are piling up. In addition to the 20 jobs lost at Maurice Lamontagne Institute, there have been cuts to agricultural research affecting more than 1,000 workers across Canada. In Quebec City, the Agricultural Research Centre is closing completely after nearly 60 years of operations. Unions are denouncing a major loss of expertise. Frankly, this reminds us of the Harper government years, which muzzled silence. In an economic context where we have to reinvent ourselves and stimulate the economy, how can the Liberals continue to cut science? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're spending less to invest more in science in this country. The science is extremely important. It's extremely important for trade. We are maintaining our presence in every single province, and we remain the largest agriculture institution in this country. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, by streamlining research and development, we can build a strong, resilient future for science. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable, Lotbinière. This Prime Minister wanted to dazzle Canadians with his grand promises to build on a scale like never seen before in Canada. But it's just a big illusion. What did he really do? He promised to deal with Trump, but tariffs went up. He promised homes, but he created offices for public servants. He promised to accelerate major projects, but not a single shovel in the ground. The results are more disappointing, and now we've learned that Canada has lost 28,000 jobs in January, and it's the small and medium business size workers that are paying the price. Instead of giving up, will the Prime Minister work with the Conservatives to restore Canadian sovereignty?
Secretary.
Madam Speaker, as my colleague noted earlier, overall employment is up over the past 12 months and wages continue to rise. These are proof points of an economic plan that is in action but is not over. This government brought forward this fall our economic plan in our budget, C-15, which is before the House, that's going to create tens of thousands of jobs in the skilled trades. It's going to bring forward tax cuts that are going to grow our economy and increase investment. It's going to create major new investments in housing, in infrastructure, in some of the largest projects that this country has seen. When will the Conservatives put those small differences aside, start cheering for Canada?
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable, Madam Speaker, we've been following their plan to adopt C-15, and they are the ones who tabled the timeline and then accuse us of filibustering this. It's ridiculous. Since they've been in power, what's happened? $58 billion in investment has fled Canada to the U.S., just like the headquarters of Brookfield. We're talking about 51,000 manufacturing jobs that have been lost last year. Will this Prime Minister support our bill on Canadian sovereignty to reward those who are building our economy rather than remaining passive while our jobs continue to go to the U.S.? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Short answer, no, we will not support my colleague's motion. That's clear, at least they know that. Now, the Canadian economy is going through a very complex period triggered by the trade war tariffs from the U.S. We've also shown a great resiliency in our economy. Problems are global, but the Canadian economy has shown that it is able to adapt to these major geopolitical changes. We are doing so, and to do this, we need to pass our budget. So let's work together. Inaudible. The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup-Kaministiquia. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister has talked about problems, but still thousands of Canadians are struggling to make ends meet. 25,000 jobs lost in January and $58 billion investment lost to the U.S. since the beginning of his term. This is unacceptable. Fortunately for the PM, Conservatives have proposed the Canadian Sovereignty Act to protect our industries and reduce our dependence on the U.S. Madam Speaker, will this Prime Minister finally work with us to protect Canada's sovereignty in the face of American threats? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. For a party that doesn't believe in climate change, they're doing a great deal of recycling. We hear this in the House constantly. Madam Speaker, our plan to build is working, and yesterday we tabled legislation to enhance Build Canada homes that will build housing across Canada, and we're doing so by stimulating steel, aluminum, wood sectors that are going through a tough time right now. We're protecting jobs, and our plan is supported by municipalities, by citizen organizations, and we hope they'll support it as well. Since last October, the forest sector is being suffering from U.S. tariffs. In January, the manufacturing sector has been hit hard by losses of 28,000 jobs. Instead of working to solve these U.S. tariffs and support Canadian companies, the Prime Minister would rather let Chinese EVs in. Can the Prime Minister work with the Conservatives on the real issues and defend forestry workers?
Madam Speaker, I think we can all agree that we're in a tariff war. And these U.S. tariffs on our softwood lumber are completely unjustified. We announced $2.5 billion to help businesses and forestry workers. We have a one-stop shop to help them with funds to diversify, as well as innovation funds, as well as buy Canadian policies to increase domestic demand, strengthen the forestry sector. We have a working group that will be giving us recommendations. The Honourable Member for Beauce. If this is a priority issue, why aren't they actually doing something about it, Madam Speaker? The U.S. is currently and will always be our main trading partner. Everyone knows that, Madam Speaker. On January 13th, in Bécomo, 346 forestry workers lost their jobs. When will the Prime Minister start working with the Conservatives and defend our workers in regions like Beauce? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, I'm a bit surprised to hear what my colleague said. Because the Conservatives have been blocking the $2.5 billion in assistance that our government included in the budget for the forestry sector. So will they help us pass the budget to help our forestry sector workers? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When he addressed the world at Davos last month, the Prime Minister talked about the gap between rhetoric and reality. Well, Madam Speaker, that gap is alive and well on the Conservative side of the aisle. The rhetoric is encouraging. Lots of talk and collaboration and working together. The reality, it doesn't always match Conservative words. Canadians want to know if the Conservatives will put country above party, or will they block important legislation, including the Budget Implementation Act. Can the Parliamentary Secretary let Canadians know what important measures would be blocked by the Conservative Party?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Immigration.
Madam Speaker, our colleague served his community as mayor. He's now fighting for his constituents in the House of Commons, and we have an opportunity now to come together and do the very same for our constituents. What will Conservatives do? Will they get behind Budget 2025? A landmark budget that invests in housing, in defense, in infrastructure to build this country up, to put in place the foundation for diversifying our trade strategy so we can ensure prosperity for current and future generations? Will they obstruct and play political games, or will they work with us on behalf of Canadians, Madam Speaker? It's their choice.
Honourable Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Madam Speaker, Canadian workers are being pummeled. 25,000 net jobs lost in January, including 52,000 in the private sector. These numbers are not outliers. After 10 years of these Liberals, Canada has seen the slowest GDP growth in the G7, a meager 0.5% compared to more than 20% growth in the United States. So in the face of these numbers, will these Liberals finally accept responsibility for a decade of economic failure?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, again, Madam Speaker, the Conservatives need a reality check. Well over 100,000 jobs since the new Prime Minister was elected last year. Madam Speaker, we are focused on building a Canada-strong economy, one that will improve the conditions in all regions of the country. That means looking at major projects. That looks at investments. We have a Prime Minister that is aggressively looking at exploring additional opportunities for exports. We have a Prime Minister that is literally bringing in billions of dollars of foreign investment. It's time that the Conservative Party...
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister promised a strong economy. He delivered stagnant growth, including negative growth in the first 2 quarters of 2025. The Prime Minister promised to build big, build bold, and build now, not a single project approved, and meanwhile, 25,000 Canadians are out of work in January alone. Enough of the rhetoric, enough of the empty promises. When will these Liberals come up with a real plan to get Canadians back to work?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I agree with the member opposite. Enough of the rhetoric. Yeah. The Conservative Party genuinely is more their self-interest is in the Conservative Party. It's time that you start thinking about Canadians. Yes. When you talk about investments, think about it. The first 5 major projects, over $60 billion of investment. Every region of this nation is going to benefit because we have a Prime Minister and a government that works for Canadians day in and day out. Conservative Party of Canada, get on side.
Somebody should tell Lamoureux to shut the up, because he's just shouting for no reason, lying. He's a pig.
Yeah. The Honourable Member for Calgary Crowfoot.
Madam Speaker, in January, the Canadian economy lost 25,000 jobs, while even more unemployed Canadians have given up looking for one. Job loss at a time of food and housing unaffordability is catastrophic, Madam Speaker. The Prime Minister promised the best economy in the G7, but under his watch, Canadians have the highest food inflation, most expensive housing, lowest per capita GDP growth, and $58 billion in capital flight to the United States. So when will this government repeal the taxes and regulations that kill jobs and make life more expensive?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, in the member's own home province of Alberta, unemployment has decreased this past month, and participation rate has actually climbed in his province, and that is part of the proof of the hard work that this government is doing with a solid strategic economic plan for the country. But, Madam Speaker, we can't move forward as a country. We can't move forward unless we have the opposition's support to pass that economic plan, to invest in the jobs that we need, to build the projects that are going to bring our nation together, and to fight off the unjust tariffs and the trade war that we're in. So join Team Canada, get on board, pass our budget.
Calgary Crowfoot.
Madam Speaker, yesterday I talked to a mortgage broker in Calgary who said her clients are increasingly worried about their jobs and that layoffs are killing home deals. She said that construction and energy workers are among the most affected. So the Prime Minister said that we're going to be an energy superpower and claimed that they are going to build over 500,000 homes per year. So if so, why are energy and construction workers the ones losing their jobs.
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, in stark contrast with the Leader of the Opposition, our Prime Minister is doing what he did in Davos was showing what real leadership looks like. In Davos, the Prime Minister said middle powers must act together because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Madam Speaker, thanks to our Prime Minister, Canada is at the table. We're securing multi-billion deals with many different countries, including Indonesia and China. You know what this is going to do for Canada? This is going to double exports. It's going to create more jobs. It's going to make life more affordable and support our local businesses right here in our country, Madam Speaker. That is real leadership.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia, Lambton, Bequadjin.
Madam Speaker, Canada has lost over 5,000 automotive jobs. 32 paper mills have shut down, and in my riding, 3 facilities are shutting down. 51,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost in the year since the Prime Minister took charge. He said he was going to build, baby, build, but the only thing he's built is the highest unemployment rate for youth we've seen in a generation. So will the Prime Minister do what he promised, build at a scale we haven't seen in generations, and work with Conservatives to restore Canada's sovereignty in the face of American threats?
Madam President, Madam Chair, we have a plan to build and build strong across the country, including in the forestry sector, where we're going to use our wood for things like Maison Canada and Buy Canadian Act. But for that, we need to be able to implement the budget that we presented, and we need the cooperation. And when are the Conservatives going to get on board with us to implement this Build Canada Strong program? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia, Lambton, Bequadjin.
Madam Speaker, where is the urgency? 67,000 jobs were lost in Ontario last month. Young people can't find work. Canadians are worried about paying their mortgage and affording groceries. So will the Prime Minister do what he promised, build at scales we haven't seen in generations, and work with Conservatives to restore our sovereignty in the face of these American threats?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is exactly what we're doing. We're building Canada strong, and we're building more and more housing. We're building at speed never seen before. Just yesterday, we put in the House the bill to enact Build Canada Home. Day after day after day, you are in this House talking to us about, Madam Chair, talking to us about affordability, but yet they are blocking everything. I'm sure Canadian and Conservatives riding would like to see going forward the proper measures we're putting to put more food on the table. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Brandon Stories.
Madam Speaker, Canadians are being crushed by the Prime Minister's failure to get the economy moving again. StatsCan confirmed Canada lost 52,000 private sector jobs last month, including 28,000 manufacturing jobs, a sector Manitoba families rely on, from aerospace in Winnipeg to value-added ag and resource processing across our province. Since the Prime Minister took office, $58 billion in investment has fled to the U.S., while the only job growth here has come from hiring more bureaucrats. Will the Prime Minister explain why his rhetoric about building and growing the economy means lost jobs for Manitoba families?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Unemployment is down to 6.5%. Inflation is within the Bank of Canada guidelines. We have a AAA credit rating and record foreign direct investment, in fact, and we're building up the country for the success of current and future generations. But let's go off the script for a moment, Madam Speaker. He's on it. The previous member was on it. They both care about defence. I know that about these members. Southwestern Ontario, my region, is an anchor of the defence sector in Canada. Absolutely. We can all bring jobs to our communities and sustain them by supporting this budget because it is a landmark budget for defence. What will he do? What does he have to say to that?
For Brandon Stories.
Madam Speaker, these members want to talk about defending our veterans. They've just closed the Veterans Affairs office in Brandon and moved it out to CFB Shiloh. So I think that's a bit rich coming from the member. But anyway, Manitoba workers want to build. That's what the question was about. Whether it's critical minerals, forestry, or manufacturing, uncompetitive Liberal laws have killed the jobs market. So while plants are cutting shifts and communities worry about their future, the Prime Minister promised to build at speeds never seen. When is he going to get started?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
We've gone back to the script, Madam Speaker. We have an opportunity. And if they don't want to listen to Liberals, as I advised just a few days ago in question period, they can listen to their former leader. Prime Minister Harper, former Prime Minister Harper, made clear that we have an opportunity to rise above partisanship now, at a moment of crisis, at a moment of rupture, to use that appropriate term. Nostalgia is not a strategy. We cannot look to the past. We have to build for the future. We have to diversify our economy, our trade relationships. We have to focus on defense like never before. We have to focus on housing like never before. What will we do?
The honourable member for Cowichan-Ballahat-Langford.
This week, the Crofton Mill on Vancouver Island shut down. Growing tariffs and lack of access to local raw logs have forced over 30 mills in BC to close. The unemployment rate in forestry doubled in the last month. On South Vancouver Island alone, hundreds of trucks arriving weekly to export raw logs to foreign countries, as approved by this government. Our proposed Canadian Sovereignty Act will legalize rapid resource development in Canada, giving mills across BC a chance to survive. Will the Prime Minister protect our industries from rising tariffs, reduce raw log exports, and work with Conservatives in the face of American threats? Good job.
Here. L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
Madam Chair, the closure of a mill is a difficult news for workers, their families, and the communities. The federal government has come forward with supports for the sector, and we urge the provincial government to work with us as partners to protect these jobs. The Forest Sector Transformation Task Force is right now hard at work to formulate recommendations to grow and build new futures for the sector. While the opposition cast blame and rage, we will continue to examine every option available because workers across Canada.
L'honorable député de Terrebonne.
The honourable member for Terrebonne. Madam Speaker, in just a few hours, 207 Canadian athletes will be entering the Olympic Stadium, proudly holding the maple leaf to represent Canada in the Milan Cortina 2026 Winter Olympic Games. Can the Parliamentary Secretary for Sport tell us about what this government is doing to support our athletes and how Canadians from coast to coast to coast can support Team Canada? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I'd like to thank my colleague warmly for this question, and I'd like to thank her for her leadership within our government. Madam Speaker, our athletes are real ambassadors for Canada. And as the main investor in the Canadian amateur sports system, our government is proud to support Canadian athletes who are bringing together all 41 million Canadians to celebrate our unity and pride. That is why we have increased the monthly benefits for our athletes by 23%. There is also a lot of pressure on them, which is why we have invested $3.11 million additional dollars in health care for them. We all together we will support them.
Madam Speaker, yesterday Health Canada officials revealed at committee that there are no age requirements at federally approved drug injection sites. In fact, Health Canada revealed there isn't even a requirement for ID. That means minors can legally use drugs in these consumption sites under Liberal law. The Health Minister approves supervised drug injection sites through the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. Why are the Liberals allowing minors to inject hard drugs under their watch?
Wow. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I thank the member opposite for the question. As a father of two young children, 15 and 17, I know how important it is to ensure that we think about the health and safety of our children and our youth. We'll work hard in ensuring that they are not in any danger of moving forward, and that's what we'll continue to do on this side of the House, and I really look forward to working with both sides of the House to ensure the safety of our young children moving forward.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Madam Speaker, the Health Minister approves these drug injection sites. And her own officials confirmed there is no age limit to use them. That means a minor from a nearby school could walk in and legally inject fentanyl under this Liberal policy. If the Health Minister doesn't think minors should be injecting drugs at these sites that she approved, why doesn't the minister stop them today?
Here. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I welcome the member's question. I will work with him after the question period to find a solution with that member, and I thank him for the question once again.
The Honourable Member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Madam Speaker, the Liberal Finance Minister failed to stabilize grocery prices like he promised 3 years ago. His new one-off rebate won't reduce the cost of a single item on the shelf. Food bank lines in my region won't shrink. Yet the Liberals voted against our motion to reduce transport and packaging costs for farmers. Food inflation must come down. When will the Liberals work with us to cut taxes to bring down the cost of food?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Their call for focusing on taxes in this particular instance is out of place, Madam Speaker. No serious analysis has given any credibility to what the Conservatives have put forward on the issue of food inflation. I've shared earlier this week, we all know it, the Bank of Canada recently affirmed it, climate change is a key factor, and the key factor when it comes to the increase at the grocery store.
Oh, it's because of climate change. Now I understand why groceries have doubled. Oh my goodness, it's the climate. These stupid assholes.
In terms of prices. How could it not be? An increase in severe weather events, droughts and floods obviously limits supply, and that has an effect. But ultimately, Madam Speaker, the member and all members across the way, all of us in this House of Commons can get behind Budget 2025 because it focuses on Canadians.
Honourable member for Pickering Brooklyn.
Madam Speaker, after months of obstruction, the Justice Committee finally completed its study on the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act. Premiers, mayors and law enforcement from across the country are asking for it to pass swiftly. Can the Parliamentary Secretary explain the important measures of the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act for us, please?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Speaker. Bill C-14 is about keeping Canadians safe, and this government is leading. Speaker, we listened to police officers on front lines, to mayors and premiers, and to victims' advocates who have been crystal clear that the status quo is not acceptable. That's why we brought forward a strong, targeted bail reform bill, and that is why we are pushing to get it passed without delay, and we expect the opposition, especially the Conservatives, to support this important bill because Canadians expect action, not obstruction, and this government is leading. Thank you.
Honourable member for Regina Wascana.
Madam Speaker, the Finance Minister promised 3 years ago to stabilize food prices. But today, Canada has the highest food inflation rate in the G7, and more Canadians are struggling to afford groceries. Clearly, this problem requires a Team Canada approach. Will the Liberals work with Conservatives to cancel the industrial carbon tax, the fuel standards tax, the plastic packaging tax, and fast-track results for Canadians?
Great question. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I was intrigued when I heard Team Canada approach. I agree that we need a Team Canada approach. I think we should focus on serious solutions. And there is solutions, Madam Speaker, for the short term and the long term. The groceries and essentials benefit that they collaborated on, thankfully, is just one short-term measure. And I agree that it's not a magic bullet. It is certainly not that. What do we have to do to ensure the future sustainability of this country? Budget 2025 provides an answer. For the generations that are looking at us, what will we do? Will we rise above partisanship and pass that important budget?
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
The Prime Minister says he wants to build Canada up, yet he's slashing over 30,000 PSAC workers, delivering core public services like EI, tax credits, food inspection, and more. Admin funding for friendship centres across the country will come to an end this fiscal. The Vancouver Aboriginal Friendship Centre is also being forced to fight for survival of his gender-based violence prevention programs and his urban programming for Indigenous peoples. Will the Prime Minister stop the cuts and protect the well-being of our communities with ongoing, stable, permanent funding for friendship centres and their programs? Yes or no?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, first of all, I would like to thank the public servants across Canada for helping us deal with the issues that Canadians and our country are dealing with at these uncertain times. I will say that the public service, Madam Speaker, has grown by over 40% over the past decade. We are focused on delivering better, faster services for Canadians. Part of that, Madam Speaker, is ensuring that we also bring our public service to a sustainable level so that the taxpayers across Canada, Madam Speaker, get the services that they require, but at the price that they are looking for.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Madam Speaker, this week the NDP government in Manitoba took over a failing for-profit care home to protect seniors. Meanwhile, the federal government owns Revera, Canada's second largest for-profit long-term care chain. In Edmonton, Strathcona, 10 seniors died and 84% of the residents tested positive during COVID-19. Despite the efforts of hardworking staff, corners were cut, and tragedies like this occur every day at for-profit facilities across the country. When will this government prioritize the health and safety of seniors and nationalize long-term?
Question, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we are a government that stands squarely with our seniors. We have a long track record of defending them, of investing in long-term care, of protecting seniors through the difficult years of the pandemic.
That's right.
In particular, we've increased GIS, benefiting over 1 million seniors across Canada. We've increased our OAS payments to seniors over 75 when they face higher costs, expanded our earnings exemption, enhanced CPP, delivering dental care for over 6 million Canadians. Many seniors in my riding call this a lifeline to oral health that they haven't received before. I look forward to working with the member opposite in continuing to provide.
Point of order if we're done.
That is all the time for oral questions. The Honourable Member for Calgary Crawford.
All right, gang. So we're going to wrap up that, but we have this other video that I want to check out. We'll give a couple of minutes of this.
Minister, we'll now turn to Mr. Cooper for 6 minutes.
Drop this. So, yeah, we've got Garrietta Sangre in the hot seat, our public safety minister. Do you feel safer that he's our public safety minister? This guy is a paper tiger, alleged terrorist. I mean, come on. Like, anyways, we've got Michael Cooper's going to be drilling him. This is Procurement Committee, so let's get right into it. Give a thumbs up for Michael Cooper. We'll do a couple of rounds here, and then we'll see what's up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister. Minister, what country is the most active perpetrator of foreign interference targeting our elections and democratic institutions?
Mr. Cooper, I think that's a question best posed to our director from CSIS.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, through you, we've called out publicly in the past China, Russia, India, and others.
Thank you for that. And I would note that NSICOP in June 2024 identified the People's Republic of China as the biggest perpetrator of foreign interference, as did Madam Justice Hogue, as did CSIS as recently as July of 2025. So in the face of that, and given that we know, and this is to the minister, that the Beijing-based communist regime has engaged in transnational repression, targeting members of Chinese diaspora communities in Canada. It is a regime that has surveilled, harassed, and intimidated members of these communities, and in doing so, it has shown no respect for Canada's sovereignty and has actively threatened the safety and security of Canadians. So given all of that, how could the Prime Minister possibly have thought it was in Canada's interests to strike a deal to pursue cooperation with the Beijing dictatorship on matters of law enforcement? Minister?
The Prime Minister has outlined on a number of occasions, and most recently and more comprehensively in Davos. We are living in times that are unprecedented, one where Canada needs to broaden its relationships. We are the closest partner to the United States. However, we know that the situation and the trading relationship
Minister, is the PRC a rule of law state? Is it a rule of law state?
If I may just... If you will give me the time, I will respond to your question.
My time is very limited, so I'm asking you, is the PRC a rule of law state, yes or no?
So, Mr. Cooper, I think to your previous question, the Prime Minister has clearly outlined the need for us to expand trade,
I'm asking you about
with countries
pursuing
in which
cooperation on law enforcement. So, is it a rule of law state, yes or no?
Well, Mr.
Does
Cooper,
it have an independent judiciary, yes or no? These are straightforward questions, yes or no? Minister.
Cooper, I'm not here as a foreign policy expert, nor
Minister,
an expert on China.
It is
I'm
obvious
here
that Beijing is not a rule of law state. They don't have an independent judiciary. Do they have civilian oversight of the police in Beijing?
Mr. Cooper, to your...
Do they respect human rights? Does the Beijing-based communist regime respect human rights? Yes or no?
Mr. Cooper, if you wish for me to answer the question,
then
I will give you a proper answer. As the Prime Minister has clearly outlined, both at Davos and in many other speeches, there is a need for Canada to expand its trading partners. China is one of them. China
I didn't ask you a question about trading partners. I asked you about cooperation on matters of law enforcement.
Mr. Cooper, if I can intervene here just for a second, and I'll pause your time. This is a very serious issue, and the members have the right to be passionate about this. Just keeping in mind our interpreters, just be careful. It is your time. You are correct. Just if we could be careful of talking over one another.
So does Beijing respect human rights? Yes or no?
Mr. Cooper, what I will say is that Canada is at a crossroads right now. There's a need and an imperative for Canada to expand its trading relationships, and Canada can do both. Canada could protect and speak out on human rights at the same time.
Minister, I asked you four
trade.
questions, straightforward questions, of which the answer is no. The Beijing communist regime is not a rule of law state.
Point of order. The committee agreed. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Chair, I want to listen to the conversation, but we can't have a conversation if we're speaking over each other. We can't even hear the answer.
There's no answer.
Either we have a conversation or we don't.
Thank you so much. Just reinforcing what I say, we did pause your time, Mr. Cooper, but please keep. You have 2 minutes left.
Different point of order.
Different point of order. Yes, go ahead.
The committee actually agreed that we would have two meetings on the implementation of the Foreign Influence Transparency Registry, and for that purpose, invite the Minister of Public Safety. I have a hard time understanding how Mr. Cooper's questions have anything to do with what this committee agreed to actually do.
With the greatest of respect to Mr. Wilkinson, who I have respect for, it seems that he must have missed the testimony of Mr. Tay, among others, who have been targeted by the Beijing-based communist regime. And here we have a government, your government, that is entering into cooperation on matters of law enforcement with a regime that is engaged in transnational repression, including in our elections.
I appreciate the intervention. Generally, when the minister is here, there is a latitude, but we have, Mr. Cooper is correct in terms of, I do believe this is relevant, but there is generally more latitude given. So we will, and it is delving into debate, but we will turn back to Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Pierre, the PRC is not a rule of law state. They don't have an independent judiciary. They don't have civilian oversight of law enforcement. They don't respect human rights. They're actively perpetrating genocide, among other crimes against humanity. And the fact that the minister couldn't answer no to all of those questions illustrates the degree to which this government, under this prime minister, is prepared to downplay and whitewash the serious interference in human rights abuses, among other outrageous conduct by a brutal dictatorship, all in the name of his new strategic partnership with that brutal dictatorship. So, Minister, given that your government is engaging in greater cooperation or is moving in that direction with the Beijing regime on matters of law enforcement, what assurance can you provide that cooperation with Beijing will not lead to facilitating intimidation, coercion, surveillance of Canadians, particularly members of diaspora communities who are being targeted by Beijing under the guise of law enforcement?
So, Mr. Cooper, the MOU that you reference with respect to the RCMP has critical significance for Canada. As you're aware, issues around fentanyl, for example, is something that is of great interest to Canada to ensure that we curtail fentanyl and precursors in particular coming through our ports from places like China are critically important. And the MOU addresses greater cooperation with respect to law enforcement on issues of critical interest to us. The notion of our national security is again embedded.
Is that there are no safeguards.
Mr. Cooper, if you're giving me a preamble and allowing me, if it's a point of order, if I may. If you're giving me a longer preamble and not allowing me to answer the question, Mr. Cooper, that's really not constructive in a conversation as sensitive as this. Okay, Minister. So if you're taking time to give me a set of facts, allow me to please give you context in which I'm addressing this matter.
Minister, I appreciate you were a committee member for many years, but as a witness, you cannot raise a point of order. But that being said, we're well over 6 minutes. So we will turn to Mr. Wilkinson, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the witnesses for appearing. Maybe just starting with in the design of the Act, I'm assuming that we looked at other international comparators. So, are there similar kinds of registries that exist in other democratic countries? What best practices did we take in the design of our Act?
Thank you. And look, when the Act was developed.
All right, gang, we're going to flip ahead because I'm not interested in listening to Jonathan Wilkinson for a second. We're going to zip ahead and get back to Michael Cooper. This is Michael Cooper round 2 with Gary. Let's check it out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, you've moments ago set down another stake in the ground, so to speak, in what is a moving goalpost with respect to getting the Foreign Influence Registry up and running. You say that it will be up and running in early spring, but I'll remind you of the timeline. Nearly 2 years ago, when the legislation to establish such a registry was before Parliament, your predecessor, Dominic LeBlanc, promised that the registry would be up and running before the federal election. That didn't happen. Then your government promised that it would be up and running by June of 2025. That didn't happen either. Then you, Minister, promised that it would be up and running by December of 2025. That didn't happen. It's now February of 2026, and you've set down another timeline, another date. So given a record of making commitments that it would be up and running 3 times, 3 different dates, each time you missed the deadline, why should we have confidence that that's going to happen now?
Look, I share the frustration that you have in the delays involved in getting to this point. But what I can assure this committee is that all the requisite work have been done, essentially complete. So with respect to the 3 elements I talked about, so the first one being the appointment of the commissioner, we have canvassed with your party, with the Bloc, along with recognized groups in the Senate. We have tabled a formal request, and we will have a vote on that in the near future.
Minister, I'm going to ask you to be a little clearer. When you say early spring, what does that mean? What is early spring?
So if I may just, I advise you on the first piece. The second piece is the regulations.
I'm asking you for what is the latest timeline? You've given months. So what is the month? Is it April? Is it May?
I'm not going to give you an exact month, Mr. Cooper, but I will say we are targeting, the work has been done, right? So the first piece is the commissioner. The second element is the regulations, which are ready to be finalized. With greatest respect,
your government has dragged its feet, and I'll remind you that for years, your government opposed and obstructed the creation of a foreign influence registry. Just before the 2021 election, then Conservative MP Kenny Chiu introduced a private member's bill to establish a foreign influence registry. As a result of his advocacy for a registry, MP Chiu was drowned by a sea of Beijing-directed disinformation, costing him his seat, disinformation that was amplified by the Liberal Party in Steveston, Richmond East, only after Madam Justice Hogue's damning report did your government finally put forward legislation to establish such a registry, which the national security establishment has been calling for years. So after opposing and obstructing a registry, isn't it the case that the new strategy is one of endless delay by your government? Because if it was such a priority, it would surely be up and running now.
I would categorically reject your assertion on this, Mr. Cooper. What I will say is the commission itself, the initial Hogue inquiry was called by this government. When Prime Minister Carney formed government, it was a top priority for him. We've been identifying the appropriate commissioner. That name is now before the House. We have completed the work, essentially completed the work on the regulations. There's some recommendations, including from members of your party, that I'm taking into account and I will revise before the final regulations are tabled. And then the system itself will be up and running. So my commitment to this committee and to all Canadians is that the registry will be up and running in the spring.
Minister, the registry's not in place. The office isn't open, and it's been more than 2 years. And your government talks a lot about obstruction, which is ironic because Conservatives worked with your government to get Bill C-70 passed expeditiously in the last Parliament. And what we have seen up until now is excuses, dragging your feet to get this important tool up and running in the face of very serious threats of foreign interference, including from hostile foreign states, foreign interference that you have now downplayed in this committee when you refuse to, first of all, identify the obvious, that being that the People's Republic of China is the biggest foreign interference actor and threat to our democracy, and your categorical refusal to state the obvious that the Beijing-based communist regime
Thanks, Antonio. You always bring the good word.
Is a perpetrator of human rights, doesn't respect the rule of law, doesn't have independent oversight over law enforcement, and now your government sees fit to do a deal on law enforcement with the Beijing-based communist regime. I don't know how Canadians could possibly have confidence in your government.
We're well over. So we'll turn to Madame Kaibag.
Right, gang, you just give me a moment. We'll get to the third round of the Conservatives because we don't really think that the Bloc... Oh, this is great. I like Blaine Calkins. He's up next.
Thank you for the question. CSIS is in...
Mr. Calkins for 5 minutes, please.
Oh, here we go.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, you've been an MP for quite some time, as have I. You have been in Cabinet. You've been not in Cabinet. You would know that members of Parliament from time to time travel as part of international delegations. I know I have a few times. I'm assuming you have as well as a regular member of Parliament. The only times that I've ever seen MPs being recalled from international trips is generally when there's a confidence vote in the House, and I think you and I would both agree that there was no confidence vote when the Prime Minister was in China. Is that correct? It's a very simple question.
Well, first of all, I don't believe I've gone on international travel. Okay. I will sponsor travel anyway, so I will put that on the record. I will say that it's up to each individual MPs to decide how long they're on a mission. And there's been cases where people have come back early, have stayed later on.
If you don't want to, I'm sitting here looking at this as a member of Parliament. I've traveled. Most members of Parliament have traveled at some point in time. You might be the only exception, but I have never seen anybody recalled from an international trip, whether it's sponsored travel or otherwise, unless they had a health concern or unless there was, and I've been recalled from Europe when we had a minority parliament when Stephen Harper was the Prime Minister. And my question to you is quite simply this. It was very obvious to everybody who was paying attention that two Liberal MPs left early. It doesn't appear to be for any health reasons. It couldn't possibly be for a confidence vote because the House of Commons wasn't in session. So the question I have, Minister, is did the Beijing regime ask your government to remove those two MPs from that trip? Or were you so afraid of the optics of it that you, in fear of Beijing, asked your own MPs to come home early?
This is well outside of my scope of expertise, Mr. Calkins. I will say that if I recall, not all the Liberal MPs returned, including the chair. So I would say that you should pose this question to somebody who may be able to answer this question.
Well, the question begs is here because, or it's present in my mind because I'm trying to be confident that you actually have and will have the best interests of Canada at heart when it comes to implementing this foreign agent registry, because you've missed every deadline so far. Your government is now engaged in conversations about shared security environments with the regime in Beijing, and you've missed all of your deadlines for this registry. So I need to know if the regime in Beijing is actually influencing any of the decisions that our government is making under threat or under threat of retaliation or under any other type of threat or out of any fear that your government has in conducting these negotiations and putting Canadians and our democracy at risk.
Absolutely not. With respect to the timeline for the transparency registry, I will say other countries who have established these registries have taken them upwards of 2 years. Why did it take you so long? I mean, you've missed your goals are self-imposed. We didn't impose them on you, Mr. Calkins, I'm the third minister within the timeline that we're talking about from the time the Act has gone into place. So I will take responsibility for the tenure of my leadership in this portfolio. And I will say we have been working diligently to make sure that all three elements that I outlined earlier
Will you
are
commit to
fulfilled.
making sure that the registry is in place and the commissioner is in place and it's staffed and ready to go before the next general election? Because we're already at the next general election.
Are we?
Well, you've already missed. Your government committed to having this in place by the next general election. Your next opportunity is the next general election.
I'm not going to make a commitment on a vote that is not in my hands, right? So vote is a free vote in Parliament where we don't know how other parties will vote. What I will say is we're making every effort, and if you want to hear from the Deputy Minister, more than willing to have her comment. We will make every effort. I will make every effort, and I will commit to working diligently to ensuring that the registry is up and running by early spring.
Are you sure that after the completion and the implementation of your foreign registry that it won't interfere in any way with Canadians voting in the next general election, whenever that happens to be?
Well, this is one tool, Mr. Calkins. This is not the only tool. There's other tools that you've heard from previously. This is definitely an important tool with respect to our democracy.
Ordinary, lawful Canadians from being able to vote, correct?
Well, this is not a panacea. If I may be very candid, it is a very important tool. One of several recommendations of the Hogue inquiry, and of course others have recommended this as well, including, I believe, this committee. It is one of several tools. So this in itself will not solve all of our issues with respect to elections, but it certainly will assist us.
Thank you so much. We will turn to Mr. Lewis for 5 minutes, please.
All right, gang, we're not going to check out Mr. Lewis, are we? We're going to find out what else is going on. We're going straight to Larry Brock in the Justice Committee. I think that should be pretty entertaining. We'll get into this.
I really enjoyed your opening statements, Mr. Campbell. It's always a pleasure to see you again. I want to sincerely thank you for all of your incredible advocacy. In my view, it was that consistent messaging that always remained the same. You are always loud and clear with other stakeholders to move this government in the appropriate direction. We are soon to go clause by clause in this particular bill before it gets back into the House for third reading and ultimately in the Senate. I want to bring to you some amendments that the Conservatives are seeking, and I want to get your opinion on it, sir. One amendment that we are seeking is to add a consecutive sentence rule for repeat human trafficking offenses. Is that something that policing should support?
Absolutely.
Okay. The Liberals will not support that. Secondly,
Mr. Housefather?
I mean, he just made a statement about an entire group of people.
with no foundation. We don't know whether we will support it or not, or different people may have different views, but I don't think that's appropriate, Mr. Chair.
I tend to agree with you, and Mr. Brock. We haven't gotten to that amendment yet,
Well,
so I would reserve your judgment on that. With all due respect.
I have a different position on that. I'm not going to elaborate, but I wanted to bring certain passages to Mr. Campbell's attention. So I will certainly seek his support or lack of support with various conservative amendments that are being brought. All right. Another significant amendment is with respect to the principle of restraint. We've talked about that numerous times. 493.1, ushered in by Bill C-75, in my view, as a former Crown attorney, was the origin of catch and release. What we want to do is, where it relates to violent repeat offending, is to replace the wording in 493 to the not consideration to the earliest release on the least onerous conditions, but to make public safety and security the primary consideration when releasing or detaining those individuals. Is that something that policing would support?
So in principle, and I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer. There's probably lots in this room, so I'm not sure how that process would work. I know C70 or C14 has tried to clarify that in the language. I can say with the least onerous condition at the earliest opportunity caused lots of issues we're seeing in the community. So I'm not going to speculate on how that should be done, but in any way to limit it, we would support.
Okay. Would policing support a term to surrender a passport as a potential condition depending on circumstances?
It makes sense to me, the first time thinking of it, but it does make sense to me.
Okay.
Yep.
Would policing support an amendment to the tertiary grounds under 515 sub 10 to include terms such as ensuring safety and security of the public, preventing physical or psychological harm to victims, including child victims and their families, preventing interference with the administration of justice? Would policing find that to be helpful for a justice considering detention or release on the tertiary grounds?
I'd have to go back and look at each section, but I mean, clearly there's an issue with keeping repeat violent offenders. I know there is some amendments around tertiary grounds for the gravity and the number of offenses, so I kind of read that as repeat violent offenders, but we would be open to looking at anything that's going to keep our communities safe.
Would policing support another conservative amendment that would require mandatory detention for certain offenses committed under a major offense category, such as a current alleged major offense being committed while the accused was at large on release for another major offense? And these would be significant criminal activity, and the accused was convicted of a major offense within the previous 10 years. Is that something that police would support?
So we did support, which is commonly referred to as the 3 strikes and you're out provision, when you're convicted of a second or a third serious violent offense, that at the third offense, you're not allowed to be released. I know there's some language around, I think it's commonly referred to as a release valve, but we supported that in principle. Yeah.
Would policing support the expansion of the conditional sentence unavailability, specifically as it relates to further firearm, weapons trafficking, also human trafficking? Is that something that makes sense to you from a policing perspective?
Definitely with the firearm offenses, any conditional sentence we do agree with. We're seeing many times people out on bail or conditional sentences committing further firearm offenses in the city.
I've heard from a number of witnesses that the problem that we find ourselves in as a nation with respect to criminal justice issues and bail is a lack of data, sharing of the data. One other conservative amendment being sought is to require the Department of Justice to table an annual report on the state of judicial interim release, including outcomes and compliance, recidivism data, analysis of effectiveness of release conditions, and accessibility and disparities across groups. Would that be something that policing would support?
I think it's really important when we're going to see how this bill, if passed, works to collect data. We also have called for an annual report and a recommendation to both the government and the Conservatives. And we also went further to say I think we should be really identifying judges and justices publicly to say if they have a ongoing pattern of releasing people. I think that there could be training provided to them, but the public has a right to know when people are released. So yes.
Mr. Brock, I gave you extra time because
Thank
of
you.
how you started your remarks.
I didn't restart my clock, but
I gave you extra
internally
time.
I thought I was probably getting close to being done. No. Thank you.
You deserved extra time for saying what you said. So.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Latanzi, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I too would like to.
We're not going to watch Latanzio. She's full of shit. We're going to zip right through. And sorry, just getting it here.
And we're all very incredibly grateful. Mr. Gill, over to you for 5 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to all witnesses. Mayor Diaz, thank you for your public service. And my question to you, right now, repeat offenders are causing a disproportionate amount of crime.
Sorry, gang. I'm going to just jump ahead here and see if we can catch Lawton or maybe we're going to get Roman Baber. No, we're getting Andrew Lawton, guys. Let's do Andrew Lawton.
In your city?
Definitely in our transit system. If you take TTC and you go down there, there's a lot of individuals, and a lot of it's mental health, addictions as well. And there's been some investment by the municipality into the TTC. But yeah, I think it's a common occurrence to see some unprovoked violence from unknown offenders. But like I come back to, the numbers say one thing, but the fear of crime that we still see being number one priority in the city of Toronto, really those unprovoked, unknown attacks create a lot of fear in the community.
Merci, Monsieur Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Fortin. Mr. Lawton, over to you for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, witnesses, for being here. I'd like to start with you, Ms. Verisek. You are not from my riding or my province, but I know that you've spoken to a lot of the concerns that have been raised. I was speaking about this issue last year with Paul Jenkins of the St. Thomas Chamber of Commerce, and one of the things that he had pointed out was how his chamber was one of the ones that was really pushing other chambers in Ontario and Canada some years back to actually start realizing that crime and justice issues are business issues and are economic issues. And I'm just wondering if you can speak to what that cost is, because I've heard from constituent businesses of mine the issues they have with insurance. I've seen just driving down streets more and more businesses that have just vacated cores entirely. What is that cost? And especially with small and medium businesses in mind.
Through the chair, thank you for that question. I do have a cost for our community that we've been able to track as a whole, but just to give you some anecdotal information here. We have one local landlord that had to spend over $3 million converting a parkade to seal it because they were running into significant property damage, vehicle break-ins, because people could get into that garage. So now they had to put up gates and secure doors. $3 million. We also had a woman, I guess, a perpetrator who was caught shoplifting, activating fire alarms in our downtown mall. One evening, she decided to steal a taxi, drive it into the storefront of one local business, and then she drove the car through the mall. That is $2 million worth of damage. So it becomes astronomical when you're adding up what people are reporting plus what people aren't reporting to you. Those are the folks that have raised it with us, but there are so many others that have broken windows, that have stopped going to insurance because the insurance is going up.
Yeah. And it's communities of all size. I mean, I mentioned St. Thomas. I know the London Chamber of Commerce, which part of London is in my riding. I've spoken about this with Christian Dweaver there. It's big cities, small communities. It's everywhere. Mr. Campbell, I wanted to get you to speak to this, if you will, because I'm sure you've heard, probably with some frustration, when property crime has been diminished as nonviolent crime, but often it doesn't stay that way. So I was hoping you could speak to just how property crime fits into the broader fabric of the types of offenses we're talking about, and especially with the bail system.
Yeah, I mean, property crimes are destructive, like you were just mentioning, to businesses, damage to homes, businesses. It can be really, when you create that disorder, I think it feeds into the fear of crime when you see things that are destroyed or people won't go into to certain businesses or parks. So yeah, I think it has a real impact on the fear of crime.
Mayor Dias, you had proposed, I don't know if you meant it as an amendment formally, but you proposed a change in the bill. I was just hoping you could be a bit more specific about what you would like to see added and where.
Through the chair, and thank you very much for that request. It is with regards to property. So repeat offenses, including the word property offenses, so that, because what is happening to, if I may just touch upon your previous question, as a community, we did a study over 3 years, and our cost as a community was about $20 million to deal with all of the effects related to this. And that expense is translated through to all of the businesses as they continue to incur expense. And when we do our budgets as municipalities, nowhere in our line items does it have anything to do with that. It's an additional cost which is not allowing us to spend that additional capital on the infrastructure that municipalities need.
Thank you. I yield to Mr. Brock.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, colleague. Chair, I filed a motion last week. At this time, I'd like to move that motion. Motion reads that at the conclusion of clause-by-clause consideration of Bill C-14, the committee immediately proceed to the consideration of Bill C-16. This is consistent with messaging not only from the Prime Minister last week, but also our Minister of Justice, Sean Fraser.
Sorry, I see hands, so I'm just trying to catch them here. Okay, Mr. Lawton, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to make sure we have.
Sorry, can I just? I think maybe I'll dismiss the witnesses if that's okay. Yes. Yeah. So we're moving on to some other business stuff. So let me just say thank you to all three of you for not only being here but for your service. Generally, we're all incredibly grateful, and I know I speak for everybody in this room and beyond this room at large too. So appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Lawton, back to you.
No, thank you. I don't want to take a lot of time. This is really just a housekeeping motion to ensure that our committee priorities are where I think Canadians expect them to be. I just want to point out that Conservatives have been, and I'm very grateful for this, extremely productive in this Parliament. We've supported the quick passage of Bill C-19, the grocery benefit, C-14, which we're working on now and will finish today. We are very committed to that, prioritizing bail reform, C-18, Canada-Indonesia free trade, Canada-UK free trade, and C-13. Bill C-5, the major projects law. This is keeping very much in that spirit and in the spirit of collaboration. We want to make sure that Bill C-16 is similarly prioritized as finally we were able to do with C-14. And just to, again, in the spirit of collaboration here, to quote the Prime Minister from earlier today, to quote, pass the legislation Canadians are counting on. So I just want to make sure we have absolute clarity on this. So we're not going to be debating this, but I want to propose an amendment to Mr. Brock's motion, and that is that the motion, this has been translated already, and we'll send it around, that the motion be amended by replacing the words, quote, the committee immediately proceed to the consideration of Bill C-16, unquote, with the following. The next priority of the committee be the consideration of Bill C-16, provided that no fewer than 8 meetings, totaling at least 16 hours, be provided for the purposes of receiving witness testimony, wherein the Minister of Justice and Attorney General and the Minister of Public Safety be invited to appear for 1 hour each on separate panels. The witnesses include victims and their advocates, police services and associations, municipal leaders, and any other witnesses the committee deems relevant. the chair only be permitted to schedule a meeting for the purposes of clause-by-clause consideration of the bill after both the Ministers of Justice and Public Safety appear, as prescribed in this motion. The number of hours of witness testimony received is at least equal to the number prescribed in this motion, and the Minister of Justice has separately appeared on his mandate and priorities for 2 hours, as unanimously requested by the committee on September 23rd, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Ms. Latanzio and then Mr. Housefather.
It's okay, Mr. Chair. We're ready to vote.
I'm just going to say one thing, Mr. Chair, since I have the floor. First of all, there was a deal made last week that the Conservatives voted for that said we were going to move to C14, we were going to do 3 meetings on C14, and we would move immediately back to clause by clause on C9, the Combating Hate Act, which is an act that not only do I care deeply about, but communities across the country care deeply about. And yet, despite having voted for that, and despite having made the deal to move to back to the Combating Hate Act, c'est drôle parce que mon collègue, M. Fortin, m'a dit...
Very odd, because our colleague, Mr. Fortin, said that probably this is what would happen if the Conservatives no longer respect deals that they make, and then they wouldn't respect this deal either, which is horrifying, quite devastating. And trying to tell the committee that we cannot go back to C9 now.
Lawton's amendment, which would essentially delay the Combating Hate Act for generations. And I think it is important for communities across the country to know that the Conservatives have not only gone against the motion that we passed 1 week ago, where they voted for going back to C9, the Combating Hate Act, clause by clause, in return for doing 3 meetings and clause by clause on this, but that they are essentially seeking to delay the Combating Hate Act forever. And so I'm against Mr. Lawton's amendment, and I'm appalled.
Okay, Mr. Lawton and then Mr. Brock.
Thank you. It's just a very quick point. C16 was just referred to this committee this week. We have heard from countless stakeholders, including some of the witnesses who testified here today, about how important that bill is. We have heard on our earlier bail study from victims about some of the measures that are in Bill C16. We have that bill referred to this committee now.
All right, gang, I'm not trying to interrupt Andrew Lawton. He is one of my favorites. He and Larry Brock are one of my favorite teams to watch. Like Michael Baird and Michael Cooper are very similar. Anyways, we're going to jump over to this. We've got to check out how brutal Stephen McKinnon is. He's here with Dan Albez. We're going to check this out.
What is your government's objection just to giving landowners reasonable notice before Ottawa freezes their property? What happens to the cases of those people, Mr. Minister? Because your own government has said that people are experiencing a affordability crisis.
Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Get your Canadian federal politics right here. Smash the like, hit subscribe. We have House Leader Stephen McKinnon, who is an absolute disaster. He's the acting transport minister as well as House Leader. Can't get any answers from this guy. Let's see what Dan Albez can do. 2 rounds, Dan Albez, Steve McKinnon, head-to-head in committee. Let's go. Let's kick it off. Stephen McKinnon.
Dear Minister, it's great to be joining you on this committee today. As the critic for transport for the Conservatives, my motto is have questions, we'll travel. Let's start with Minister, Section 98 of the Canada Transportation Act exists so that the agency can examine whether a proposed rail line is reasonable for the affected communities and landowners. Why does your bill eliminate this independent review entirely? Wouldn't an expedited CTA review preserve oversight without delaying the project?
It would delay the project.
Minister, you said in just 4 years. That's just for a small component of it. Is there any harm, Minister, in restoring even a 90-day expedited CTA review so communities can have a legal avenue to be heard?
We believe this project, as the bill references, is for the general benefit of Canada. That is why we've taken the steps that you see in the bill to make sure that whether it be a major energy project, for example, a major mine, a major piece of infrastructure elsewhere in the country, we've determined that moving quickly, moving quickly on projects that have existed in the public's imagination or the public's consciousness over many, many years. It is important to accelerate these things. This is something that we thought strongly enough that we made it a major part of our platform in the last election. And with respect to high-speed rail, this is a project that, while it was announced prior to the last election, we spent a long time debating and figuring out how we could get to a decision to construct this piece of infrastructure in an accelerated time frame. And this is
no one is talking about eliminating the project or patting on big, bulky consultation processes. A 90-day expedited CTA review would give it independence and give people a trusted body in which they can make those representation. Now, Minister, under your bill, a landowner can wake up to a right of first refusal or a prohibition on work notice without any warning, instantly freezing their land. Why not include a simple 120-day mandatory notice so that farmers, homeowners, and small businesses aren't ambushed by your process or lack of it?
Well, let me first state that common sense will predominate in this process, and we will, of course, approach landowners to indicate interest and to attempt to negotiate a fair market value for the limited amount of corridor that will be required for the project. There is obviously every interest on the part of Alto and on the part of the government to have good and effective relationships with people along the route. This is a significant piece of linear infrastructure. It requires a limited corridor, but it requires a continuous corridor. And once we announce the specific corridor that has been selected, the specific alignment that has been selected, we will, of course, in all cordiality and in all willingness to negotiate, approach landowners on a no surprises basis.
But, Mr. Minister, quite honestly, it doesn't say that we are going to show common sense in the legislation. It says nothing at all. In fact, you know, what is your government's objection just to giving landowners reasonable notice before Ottawa freezes their property?
Again, this is a corridor, a very small 60-meter corridor. The measures that you're referring to have
120 days just give them the chance so that they can plan properly. Right now, the clock is on them, not on you. That's not fair. That's not property rights.
A right of first refusal does not preclude someone from negotiating a purchase and sale agreement. In fact, the process for
freeze on work could cause considerable problems. You said 4 years, but what if it goes longer than that,
freeze
Minister?
on work is actually a courtesy to landowners so that they don't end up, indeed, so that they don't end up planning significant improvements.
Minister,
to a piece of
put
land.
yourself in the shoes of someone who's worked their whole lives and they're about to make a sale, and suddenly you get a freeze on what they can do on it, and suddenly the value of that property is totally in question. Imagine if you were that person, as someone who's near retirement. Isn't that the equivalent of pulling the rug out under them and their property rights?
No, the principle that, again, the very common sense principle will be one of fair market value for this limited amount of land that is required.
Well, you could freeze someone up at 4 years or longer where they can't do anything. And, Minister, your bill also allows for land to be expropriated on a fast track, but it doesn't guarantee compensation based on independent appraisals or even cover a landowner's own legal costs. Why not ensure compensation is based on the highest and best use value verified by 2 independent appraisers? Why not allow, again, a fair market value that is actually appraised by experts rather than what you think it is, Minister?
Again,
brief response, please.
the first principle of fair market value is ought to be established in a very common sense conversation between Alto and the landowner, where we attempt to establish a negotiated price.
A large corporation
Thank you, Mr.
and an
Albus.
individual.
That concludes
Not fair.
the time for this.
All right, guys, smash the like, hit subscribe. Dan Albez, Steve McKinnon, round number 2. This guy, Steve McKinnon, is hard to take. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Let's get back to the video.
5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Minister, earlier we were talking about independent appraisals, but I'm really confused. You said earlier in response to Mr. Garon that the bill specifically protects and gives people a heads up when their land is going to be changed. Can you point to me which section?
I'll ask my deputy. I don't have the exact bill at hand, but ou Monsieur Robitaille pourra.
Oui, mais en fait, in
Robitaille can answer.
Sections that change, right? All of the other sections of the Expropriation Act remain the same. So the thing about the notice, the prior notice before expropriation starts remains, as well as the notice of expropriation after.
How long is the appropriation notice or the?
I will confirm the time, but it is like well in advance of expropriation.
Okay. Well, I'd like to know what a number with well in advance. So, Minister, while that's being looked at, the bill essentially lets Ottawa freeze or take land, but it gives landowners no statutory right of appeal. Why would your government oppose giving Canadians a simple right to seek a review at federal court?
It's in the bill. There's a possibility of appealing all of this to federal court,
Okay.
just like you can appeal, like any citizen can appeal any federal matter to the federal court.
Okay. Well, that's an important protection for them to have. And, Minister, again, what about the ability to have 2 independent appraisals? Don't you believe, what happens if you have a retiree who is unable to afford to get their own independent appraisal and to contest these at federal court? What happens to the cases of those people, Mr. Minister? Because your own government has said that people are experiencing a affordability crisis.
Robitaille va vous pour ce qui est de l'évaluation.
Yeah. So change as only specific amendments. The rest remains the same. So, landowners have the opportunity to have an independent, appraisal of their land, and that be taken care into account in the value of the land that is being purchased.
So, having the ability to do so, in the case I just gave you of someone that can't afford to do so, that's not a right at all.
Yeah. No, in this case, the cost of doing this work is included in a compensation that's going to be provided to landowners.
Okay, so will they be given 2 independent assessments, or will it be Alto simply giving their assessed value, and then they have to contest that value at court as being the lowest that it starts at?
Yeah, the way it works is the Alto gets, well, actually in this case, we need to take into account, Alto can purchase the land on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. Mm-hmm. So if we get to an expropriation, it is the Minister of PSPC that does it, right? So I just want to clarify. So the Minister of PSPC would get its own appraisal. If the landowner wants to get their own appraisal, it is possible, and that's an eligible cost, which would be
the highest and best use.
Yes. So they are well on
yes or
principle.
No? It's again highest and best use. It's either one of those yes or no questions. Because when you freeze someone's land, that undermines the cost of it.
Yeah, the principle of expropriation, it is to take into account the different use of the land.
Okay, so again, the answer is no. The bill lets Ottawa also impose a right of first refusal and work prohibition notices with no expiry date, which can depress land value indefinitely, even the people around it. Why not limit these freezes to 18 months unless a judge approves an extension? Minister.
The principles that you just discussed, whether it be on improvements or the right of first refusal, are in fact to allow landowners the clarity that significant improvements to the land should not be contemplated. That's, I think, a pretty easily explainable principle. There should not be, of course, construction on an identified piece of a corridor of linear infrastructure. In terms of the right of first refusal, that does not prevent a landowner from entering into a purchase and sale agreement. It just allows the government to match.
Minister, again, if you've frozen the use of something and there is no defined timeline, like 18 months, you said right away that this is 4 years just for the first
Just remember,
phase.
to put
This
it in
could be-
context, this is after a specific piece of land, a 60-meter wide corridor has been identified already as being part of the recommended alignment.
Minister,
Thank
I know you want to
Minister.
minimize
Thank
it,
you,
but
Mr. Elvis.
again,
That concludes the
18
time that
months
we have.
at
We're
very.
going to
I'm just
move
going to finish
No,
my
no,
words
Mr.
here.
Elvis, your time is up.
I just want to say,
Mr.
Minister, it's
Sawatsky,
important for
can we
people to
please have
know
Mr. Elvis's
18 months.
mic? His time is up. Thank you. Mr. Sawatsky.
We'll wrap it up there, gang. Aaron Canadian Looney. All right, so gang, what we're going to do now is drop over for one more piece. We've got to watch our guy, Jasraj Halan, tear apart the Little Rat FPC. We've got that to call up. Then we're going to end on that. So we'll check this out.
Specific factors include inputs like your industrial carbon tax, like your liberal fuel standard, like your food packaging tax. We have the most indebted households in the entire G7 because of your failed policies. In 2023, you said you would bring down those costs. Why have they not gone down? Thanks, Chair. Minister, the Parliamentary Budgeting Officer costed this rebate at $12.4 billion. Your government has already doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit at $80 billion. Where are you going to find another $12.4 billion to cover the cost?
Well, to go back to your first question about PBO, different assumptions. So this is not unusual.
Whether it's 11 or 12 billion, where are you going to find
no,
that
it's
cost?
just different assumptions. The difference between their number and our number. I would say to be in government is to choose. We chose to support Canadians at the time of need. And this is part also of our Canadian values.
Minister,
and the fact that you voted in
you could
favor.
have also chose to reduce costs of groceries, but instead you didn't. The real issue is that the cost of groceries. So you're adding another $12.4 billion of deficit onto Canadians. There's only a few ways to cover that, as you know. You can either raise taxes, put more debt onto Canadians, or make government cuts. Which is it to cover this cost?
Well, I would say there's other ways to grow the economy. That's exactly what we're doing. That's why you saw Budget 2025, that we have generational investments to grow our economy, because
Minister,
that's the way that we're going to make Canadian
we had
richer.
0% growth in GDP in November. All of last year, GDP per capita flatlined at 0%. And the Bank of Canada is basically saying it's going to flatline next year for growth. So I don't think you can say that the economy is going to be doing any better or help you guys out. But you are the guy who made a big claim in 2023 about lowering grocery prices. So after this rebate, can you please tell Canadians how much will grocery prices go down, just the price?
Well, I would just want to correct the record, Madam Chair. Canada will, not me, but the International Monetary Fund has said, which is a credible source, say that Canada would have the second fastest growth in the G7. So I think you should be rejoicing with that, because this is good news for Canada.
I don't think Canadians would be rejoicing.
Well, the IMF is a pretty
the highest household debt in the
is a
entire
very credible
G7.
source.
But again, Minister, we got to go back to the question: how much will groceries go down with this rebate? We just need to know the price.
Well, I'm sure when you voted in favor, you applauded the fact that not only there'll be a boost, but there's also a bridge to 2030 and structural measures that will allow to have a more resilient food production in Canada. That's why we also will have a national food strategy. And I think it matters to Canadians for food security.
We have the highest grocery inflation in the entire G7. In 2023, you made this grand show that you were going to pull in all the grocery CEOs. You said you were going to be the minister on a mission. You said that you were going to be the guy that gave it to them, and they were going to stabilize grocery prices. And since then, now we have the highest grocery inflation in the entire G7. So if you're not going to tell us how much prices will go down, can you at least tell us, minister on a mission, on what date will grocery costs go down for Canadians? Just the date.
I think, Madam Chair, it'd be important maybe, that I'm happy to produce that for the record of the committee, but there's something called the Understanding the Resurgence of Food Inflation in 2025 by the Bank of Canada. I think that might help my colleagues to understand the source of inflation. This is coming from the Bank of Canada.
Great. I read that report today, Minister.
No, but I think you want me to quote it.
In that report, it says two-thirds
of
food costs
the food costs that we see today that are the highest, grocery inflation in the G7, the cost of food, 2/3 of that are caused by domestic factors. Domestic factors include inputs like your industrial carbon tax, like your liberal fuel standard, like your food packaging tax. Those are things that are directly in you and your government's hands that you guys refused and in fact voted against when we brought it forward to help lower the cost of food for Canadians. We see 2.2 million Canadians going to a food bank in a single month. 700,000 plus of those are children. And we have the most indebted households in the entire G7 because of your failed policies. In 2023, you said you would bring down those costs. Why have they not gone down? Just answer, why are our costs and why is our food inflation double the U.S.'s?
I just want to help my colleague again, because that's in the report, but just for Canadians to be able at home, it says the rise in food inflation in 2025 was mostly driven by pressures from import costs.
Excuse me?
That's the Bank of Canada. It's not even me who says that.
It also says 2/3 of the costs
it's helping
of
you
food
to
are from
understand
domestic
the
factors.
nature of the inflation.
If I
I'm
could
trying
just
to
say
help.
one person at a time, please. It's a bit of a challenge for the interpreters.
Minister, your $925 top-up, and right beside it is $1,000 increase in grocery costs because your government is spending. So there's a loss already for Canadians. Your rebate is literally $10 a week on a weekly $300 grocery bill. How is that supposed to help Canadians? Should you not be lowering the cost of groceries?
I would say to you, maybe
Sorry, Minister, we're gonna have
$945
to-
may not make a
Minister, we're
difference,
gonna
but it's
have
going to make
end
a
it
difference for
there.
millions of
Thank you,
Canadians.
Mr. Halan. Minister, we will continue with Mr. Sawatsky.
We'll wrap it up there, gang. All right, gang, we are wrapping it up right there. Thank you all. Smash the like, hit subscribe, get your Canadian federal politics right here. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. It is Friday afternoon here in Nova Scotia. What are we going to do? Make more videos about Canadian federal politics. That's it. We've got the most entertaining, engaging chat room online that you're going to find about Canadian federal politics. I believe that. I love the chat room, man. It keeps me coming back. People are funny. They're smart. They're critical thinkers. They know what's going on. Most of the people that join in the chat and the regulars definitely know what's going on. It's a gong show out there. We are wrapping this up for today. Maybe we'll be back this evening. Over the weekend, there'll be some live shows. Smash the like. Get notified if you want to find out when we're dropping live shows. We do our regular program through the week, but over the weekend, sometimes it's just by the seat of our pants, we'll throw something up there that we catch that's happening. That is it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Aaron, Canadian Looney, thank you all. It is enjoyable, the chat room. The politics, well, that's a challenge. That's something else. Anyhow, we go out on Romper Room because that's how we do it. All right, gang, have a great weekend.
Oh, yeah.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole, and I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room.
Bing bong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.
Ding dong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Tip tap, pitter pat, granny cat too. Rooty toot, kimble, loopy loo. Boppity stompity, romper room and friends.
All right, gang, we're out. Have a good weekend. Thank you all for